Hi, and welcome to the Furuno Making Waves Podcast. I'm Jeff Kozlerick, and this new podcast is going to be covering all things Furuno, from radars and fish finders to navigation and sonar. We'll even have special guests like our brand ambassadors or people from other companies who have special interest in our Furuno products. We'll even have Furuno insiders who will give us tips and tricks on how to operate equipment. During these live premieres, we will have the live chat with our Furuno staff on call that can answer questions as you pose them in the chat. And to help us out, we'd love to have you subscribe or hit the like button for each of these videos. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the Furuno Making Waves podcast. Well, welcome to the first episode. And to start things off, we're going to talk to Eric Coons, who's our Senior Product Development Manager. Eric, why don't you give us a little background on you and who you are?
Yeah, sure, Jeff. I've been at Furuno for 31 years. In fact, a couple months ago, I celebrated my 31-year anniversary.
Wow.
Really excited to still be here, still working, and still be a big part of our product development team, or at least a small cog in the wheel, whatever I am. It depends on...
No, you're pretty big.
But I'm glad to be here. Today we're going to be talking about radar. I've been involved in radar systems. I started as I graduated in 1986 from Wired University as an engineer. But before that, I had a lot of experience with electromechanical systems growing up in my dad's transmission and automotive engine shop. I have a pretty long history of that in my family. Both my great-grandfathers are from Germany. They were blacksmiths and kind of fell into the automotive business. So I kind of carried that on.
If you see Eric's yard, he has a bunch of cars there too. So it's proof that he's in the automotive industry as well.
I do have a lot of projects. Yeah, it's true. But I enjoy all of it, and I enjoy working here. Enjoy being part of the team.
Now, you also were on a boat itself, and you'd spent many years traveling.
Right. Yeah. After I graduated from engineer school, I started as a field service engineer at Radio Holland, which is a pretty popular field, repair and engineering service for marine electronics around the world. I worked there for about 3.5 years when I got a job as a mate and engineer on a really cool mega yacht called Galileo. And I was actually hired to install the gyro compass and some communication equipment, as well as the radar systems on that boat up in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. And I befriended the captain there. He gave me a round trip ticket, said the boat's going to be out in Southern California. I'm looking for a guy like you to be my engineer and mate. We're going to sail around the world. So I was kind of like the below decks guy before below decks existed. So I did that for about 3.5, almost 4 years before I joined the team here at Furuno.
So not only do you have an electrical knowledge from school, but you actually were on the water going around the world and experiencing the seas.
Exactly. I crossed the Pacific 4 times and the Atlantic twice, as well as did a lot of coastal sailing, iceberg patrol, Iceland, the whole coast of Norway. I navigated the English Channel at night by myself on watch.
Wow.
So it was pretty, it was about 99% boring and about 1%, oh my gosh, we could die. So that's typically the way it is in boats sometimes. But I have a lot of experience and I brought it all to the table, and I've been pretty excited to contribute that knowledge into our products at Furuno over the past 31 years.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for the background on you. So, as you said, we're going to start with radars. So let's go ahead and dive into radar technology. All right, so today in this podcast, we're going to be talking about radar, all things radar. Obviously, their radar comes in different size displays. We have, from a small, about a 8-inch display?
Yeah.
All the way up to large commercial radars that are, monster displays. But they also come in different antenna styles too, right?
That's right. Jeff, the modern radar technology really originated about 75 years ago. It's basically an echoing system for electromagnetic energy, just electromagnetic, like light waves, that you can't see, but there's still electromagnetic energy, and it's pulsed out, and hopefully you get a reflection back on something that's out there. And the concept was really kind of driven home when the cavity magnetron was invented in the UK and sent over to MIT when Churchill thought Hitler was going to take over, basically overrun England. They put a care package together of all their latest technology, sent it over to the US. we grabbed this thing called a cavity magnetron. MIT took it, made the first high-frequency radar system, and used it to win the Battle of the Atlantic, basically. That's how that originated. And really, it didn't change for about 70 years until about 5 or 6 years ago when solid-state radar technology kind of took over, and we came out with the NXT radars. There's a big difference between solid state and traditional magnetron radars, but one of the biggest things is the ability to create a Doppler shift. A Doppler shift really allows us to take advantage of things that are moving around us in a single sweep. So radar technology, traditionally, you had to look, and the display size really doesn't matter. You're still getting the same kind of information, but the size of the radar does matter because the antenna is able to focus the energy and discriminate the individual targets around you by increasing, or rather decreasing, the horizontal beam width. So the tighter the horizontal beam width, the clearer and more sharply refined picture you're going to get, which can separate things like buoys at a distance or a tug and tow at a distance. And it also helps, and the larger antennas like this open array behind us, helps focus that energy to concentrate it to get a reflection off of a target that's out there.
One of the examples that we use at boat shows a lot is like if you have a dome, you have that wider horizontal beam width. And so if you have two targets and the antenna is going by, it might see those two targets as just one target.
As a single blob, yeah.
But if you have an open array where that horizontal beam width is narrower, it comes through and actually sees and separates them as two targets. Exactly. So that's the difference between where you're able to actually pull two targets. And that might be critical, right? I mean, if you have a buoy in a boat and you're like, oh, that's just a buoy, but that's actually a boat, and you're seeing,
Absolutely, yeah. The ability to discriminate horizontal beam width is one of the most important aspects of radar systems, and the reason why these big ships have much larger arrays. So these, like a larger vessel, you can fit it, or if your budget can justify it, having a larger radar definitely helps in all aspects of radar navigation.
So what are the different uses for radar? I mean, obviously, what we're talking about right now is navigation, but are there other uses that make sense for radar?
Sure, yeah. You can use radars for bird detection for fishing is also popular.
Right.
And there's a lot of other uses. Coastal monitoring is also a thing that we do. We get involved with the Furuno radar systems. So there's surveillance and detection, not just for navigation. So radar systems are used all over the world for that, marine radar systems especially. So this technology is kind of universal, and it really makes the difference. It's unlike AIS, a vessel doesn't have to have a transponder on it in order for you to see it with a radar. So if there's crab pots or things in the water that are semi-submerged, it's important to understand that radar only detects things above the water surface. So if there's big waves, you'll get some sea clutter sometimes. There's also, if off in the distance, you can use it for weather detection as well, for rain, for storm clouds, for squalls. You might want to, if you have a sailboat, and we've done this, and you see a squall, you might want to sail into the squall to collect fresh water or wash your boat. Or you might want to avoid it depending on how big it is or where you are. And when we cross for example, we left St. John's, Newfoundland. We crossed over to Reykjavik, Iceland. I was on iceberg watch, iceberg patrol on the radar for pretty long periods of time, just because you're looking for those kinds of targets. You're looking for things that are in the water that aren't talking back to you.
So an iceberg has enough of a reflection that radar can pick that up?
Yes, the iceberg has a radar signature, yeah, if it's out of the water. Of course, most of the iceberg is below the water surface, so that's why you really want to watch out for it. You want to give it a nice big berth, or, a lot of distance around it. But an iceberg actually is a pretty good radar reflector.
Very interesting.
So it's kind of interesting, yeah. But the important thing to understand with the latest technology is Furuno's NXT technology is solid state, and it allows Doppler shift, which we call target analyzer. Target analyzer is a way for the radar to just make a single sweep and use that Doppler functionality to determine what's moving around you in a single sweep. And that's the important aspect. That's kind of the game changer with this new NXT solid state technology. Additionally, solid state technology, there's no, in these magnetrons, they're kind of like a vacuum tube. They have a limited lifespan. They'll last about 5,000 to 7,000 hours of transmit time. with the NXT technology in solid state, there really is no consumable parts inside the array or the radar anymore, so you don't have to worry about that.
So nothing to replace.
Nothing to replace. Just turn it on and let it go. There's nothing to worry about.
So there's no reason to not have your radar going at that point.
Exactly. In fact, the Coast Guard recommends it. If you have a radar on your vessel, you're supposed to use all aspects of navigation safety that are available to you as a captain on the boat in any water situation and any situation. So yeah, turn your NXT radar especially on, let it go. But the important thing also is that you can look at that radar, and especially for novices, you don't have to have a lot of radar experience to understand the picture. You can just look at the radar, and the way we've developed this target analyzer feature is that anything moving around you will show more than 3 knots, will show the target as red. Everything else is green. So even if my kids are on the boat with me, or my wife, she might not have a lot of experience, or your spouse or whoever's on the boat with you might not have a lot of radar experience, just tell them to look at the radar. If you have to go below or do something, you're working on deck, and tell you if there's any red targets on that appear on the radar. Those are targets that are moving at you that could run into you. All the other targets are going to be stationary, which you just have to avoid.
Right.
So that's the big
showing a hazard that you need to be aware of, and say, yeah, I need to steer this way or steer that way, or at least watch it and make sure that you know what's going on.
Yeah, that's where some of our other new technology, that we
risk visualizer.
Risk visualizer actually helps you determine which way to steer as well, and tells you where the risk is.
The AI avoidance route.
AI avoidance route.
TZ Touch XL. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. So that's how these new technologies based on this NXT functionality that are part of the solid state system that allow you to really improve your navigation and increase your situational awareness.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about the antennas. So we have the dome, and we have domes that are as small as 18 inches, 19 inches?
19-inch dome. Yeah, this is our smallest dome that we have for the NXT technology, especially right now.
Right, and then we have a 24-inch as well.
24-inch.
And then we have open arrays.
Open arrays that go all the way up from 3 feet all the way up to 8 feet right now for the X-band systems, yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
So the reason for that is pretty self-explanatory, especially if I open up this dome, we take a look underneath. You'll see that there's the same kind of array that's inside this white open array cover is inside this dome, and they all spin around. They all spin 360 with 360-degree motion, and they spin around anywhere from 48 RPMs to 24, depending on the system, even faster on some of the newer products.
Do they automatically change, or do you have to manually change?
No, they automatically change. So depending on the range, if you have short range situation, the radars will automatically, the sweep will automatically speed up to increase the, to give you more information at closer ranges, so you can see what's happening at, in a more timely.
So like if you're in a crowded harbor or like a narrow passageway,
right,
it goes faster.
Yeah,
so
that you have a short range situation, boom, you're on shorter ranges, the radar will spin faster to give you more time and to give you faster updates, was what I was trying to say.
Gotcha.
Just more update. Yeah. So and the important thing to understand is that there's 2 aspects to the size of the array. One is that, again, that horizontal beam width. The longer array has the ability to focus the energy into like a tighter or smaller slice of pie coming out of the system. And you want as small a slice of pie as you can get, because that increases your horizontal or decreases rather your horizontal resolution, which means that you can get higher resolution, a cleaner picture. You can separate a tug and tow at distance. You can separate buoys from boats, a harbor entrance. You can look at both buoys coming into a harbor at distance. And also it increases the power. The longer array increases the power on target. So you're more likely to get a reflection off of a target if you have a longer antenna, because you're squeezing all that energy into a tighter area.
Gotcha. So the more power that hits a target, the better chance it has coming back, and
the more likely you're going to get a reflection. And that's what radar's all about. Same thing with the sonar systems, active sonar and passive sonar as well. Active sonar underneath your bed or fish finder, same thing. We're sending out energy. We're hoping to get a reflection and see anything in the path of that energy. And that's the way radar systems work.
I remember when we were down in the Florida Keys that one time, and we were in that harbor where all those sailboats were moored in different areas, and we were going through there, and the returns that we received were we were using a dome,
Right.
and it was actually amazing where you could see all the individual sailboats, and they were all lined up, and it looked like almost like pylons or something like
exactly,
that.
yeah.
But then off on the other side of it, we could see even just a small like zodiac that was just coming out, and it was moving, and we were able to track that in the midst of all those individual targets.
That's the great thing about radar systems in general, and especially this new NXT technology with our target analyzer. So if you remember, that small zodiac actually was coming at us and it was painted red.
Right.
So you could see that amongst green targets that were stationary. So that's the cool thing about this type of system, is that especially this new solid state NXT technology, is that it really simplifies radar interpretation, and you could do it in a single sweep. Before, with previous with X-band technology or with the previous radar technology, you had to have more experience. You had to look at the radar spinning around and around and around. Now you no longer have to do that with this new solid state technology, and especially target analyzer, the way we've implemented it.
Now, you could also overlay radar targets on top of charts as well, right?
That's right. Yeah, with the latest systems out there, we have the capability to provide radar overlays. So you can take your radar information and put it right over the top of chart information. So you can get like a double confirmation that you're looking at a buoy and not something else, and not a boat, because you'll see the buoy or land, land following you. You can follow land and see the radar overlay the land, see it overlay targets, and really get a very strong confirmation or double confirmation of what you're looking at.
Exactly. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about dual range?
For dual range is actually a nice feature that's available with our all our DRS radars have dual range to a certain extent. And what that means is that you can run the radar at two different ranges simultaneously. So you can say, okay, I want to have a nice short range image, maybe a mile for close range navigation, but you also want to look out at further distances. If you're looking for rain squalls, you're looking for land, you're looking for different information at say 24 or even 36 miles, you can have a dual range system with our new digital radars, and it's pretty cool. That isn't even necessary for the NXT. The NXT has it as well, solid state, but it also is all part of our new anything Ethernet with our digital radar systems has that capability.
And it does not require two antennas.
It does not require two antennas. That's a great thing about it. So we can send two different video channels down the Ethernet lines from our digital radar systems, and give you that kind of interpretation, that kind of information simultaneously, which is something that you just couldn't do before with traditional radar.
All right, Eric, so let's talk a little bit about the whole Doppler effect, or how does Doppler work within these radars?
And with solid state radars, again, we have the capability to actually process a Doppler shift in a single sweep. And we've all heard Doppler shifts as an ambulance drives by or a police siren. You can hear the frequency change. Whoa, 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 whoa. You can hear it go up, and then as it goes by, as it's coming towards us, and then fades away or lowers in terms of frequency as the sound goes away from us. That's a Doppler shift. The same thing happens with radar technology when you have these solid state transmitters.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually really cool. The key thing, again, is it gives us the ability to detect motion of a target in a single sweep. Traditional radars that had magnetrons, we couldn't get that kind of information. They didn't have the stability. So the radar literally had to spin for at least a few or maybe 10 seconds and get a bunch of sweeps, and you could watch slowly as a target moved or progressed across the screen in different directions. That's how you determine whether a target was moving or not. But with the solid state X-band NXT technology, the key thing is that we can detect that Doppler shift and in a single sweep determine everything that's moving around us. That allows things like fast target tracking, a brand new way to process data and do it super fast and give you that information in a single sweep.
And the fast target tracking actually gives you information like the speed that a target is traveling,
Right.
And
Exactly.
the closest point of approach, and
Right.
those kind of information, right?
Yeah, fast target tracking allows us to say, okay, track and concentrate on this target, and then we'll look at it over a couple sweeps, give us the closest point of approach, CPA, time to closest point of approach, TCPA. That's what all those acronyms pop up and show you how you need to navigate or where you need to be. And then
to be aware of it.
exactly, to be aware of it. And then we take that same information and we spin it into these new features that we're just coming out with our Excel product line, like for example, the
risk
visualizer and the avoidance routing. So the target avoidance routing. So those are the new things that we take that information and take it a step further and make it even easier for you to create better situational awareness and understand where you need to be on the water.
So talk just a little bit about the risk visualizer. What does it do? Because I know it displays like a little pill icon in front of the target. So it changes from like a gray color when it's just kind of showing up as, hey, this is something to watch. And then when it becomes something that's hazardous to you, it turns to red. Right. And so explain what that does and what that information is.
At a distance, when you're navigating, you're trying to figure out where you need to be or which targets are dangerous. So it's like taking the target analyzer feature and adding another level to it. So we know that certain targets are moving. We know that certain targets are moving at us with target analyzer, but then we add another level with that pill and the different color changes. So you can be even more aware of how much of a risk that target is.
So basically that icon is telling you that if you continue your current course, you're going to collide with them.
Right, exactly.
And so then the AI collision avoidance then paints an optional route for you to say, hey, if you want to avoid this target, go to here, and it will route you around that.
Yeah, that's where we take our new TZ maps that are part of the Excel MFDs, new product line, and we add that, and we create an alternate route or a way to route around a dangerous situation, a dangerous crossing situation. So we combine radar, maps, rules of the road, depth information, all that information into a single navigation solution and provide a means for you to avoid that situation, that dangerous situation.
So that's taking the settings that you put into the TC Touch XL, giving you your boat information so that it's calculating depth, and so that it's not going to give you a route that will end up grounding you.
Right.
It's going to take all that information, calculated, and say, this is the safest way for you to get around this vessel that is showing the risk visualizer, and tell you, here's how you get around.
That's right. You're in a crossing situation. You're not sure what to do, perhaps. There's a limited visual, limited visual.
Foggy out.
It's foggy out, for example, or it's nighttime. The risk that whole target avoidance routing will actually create a safe route for you to follow in the event that you're not sure what to do. And it's just combining all that information into a single navigation solution from your radar, from your maps, from your depth information. So it actually is combining it all together and presenting you with the path that you need to take to be safe.
So let's talk about weather a little bit.
Sure.
We're talking fog or night, and we have the rain mode within the NXT radars that's available for that. So explain what rain mode is and how it uses that Doppler technology to be able to give you a new feature.
Great question, Jeff, because this was something that was just not possible with traditional radar technology. With our solid state technology, not only can we provide that Doppler shift, but we can analyze the radar returns and actually see rain clouds. It's important to understand that X-band radar was originally developed, in other words, this size radar, this frequency radar that you'll see on all boats below a couple hundred feet. On bigger boats, we do have a different S-band. We have an S-band technology, which is a much longer wavelength. But S-band technology, the wavelength coming out of the radar is about the width of your thumb. So that's the energy coming out of these small
really
radars.
constant.
Yeah, so it's really small, and it happens to be oriented, if you look here, in kind of a vertical fashion, and it's about the same length as a raindrop falling through the atmosphere. So these radars, this technology was originally called a weather radar because it reflected off rain so well you could see rain, but you can't see into the rain with traditional radar.
It just shows up as kind of like
it just shows as a blob. So if there's a target in that rain, you can't see it. But what we've been able to do with Target Analyzer rain mode is be able to actually see rain paint it in kind of a light blue color, and actually see targets inside squalls, which was unheard of. It's unheard of.
Wow.
Either from any other manufacturer, nobody else has it, but Furuno was able to.
So you can actually use that to navigate. If you see a target in there, you know that that's another boat, and you're not going to want to collide with them.
You may be in a rain situation where you can't avoid the squall, or you're in rain, and normally some X-band, some traditional radars just literally blank out. You can't see anything. But with this new solid state NXT target analyzer rain mode, you just enable it in this, slide up the menu on any of the new MFDs, including TZ Touch 3 or the new XL products, turn on NXT XL rain mode, and boom, it'll automatically paint the rain in a blue color and see into the rain, which you just can't do with anybody else's product that I know of.
So in addition to rain mode, we also have bird mode. So the bird mode does something somewhat similar?
It's similar. It really, bird mode is more for kind of increasing the sensitivity of the radar automatically to look for weak targets in the distance. So you're looking for certain kinds of targets that don't show up normally, but if you're out there, especially it works in the calm of summer in the Keys, or in certain areas where there's not much going on, there's not much happening. Wind, you need a little wind to fish sometimes. It helps. But if it's pretty calm and you can't see what's going on around you, you see no action on the water, you can turn on the bird mode and automatically sensitize the radar, look for birds off in the distance, and then go where the birds are. And typically, if you see birds, there's life, there's food chain, there's fish underneath it, fish.
You don't have to adjust anything.
You don't have to adjust anything. Just turn on the bird mode and look for targets out there at a distance.
So one of the tips that I've seen you do in the past with bird mode is to turn target trails on too. So it actually puts a trail so that you can actually see that it's kind of erratic, and that that's a bird, or it's easier to tell that.
It's easier to tell. Yeah, if you turn on target trails, you don't have to look every sweep. Birds, depending on whether they're diving or how they're kind of flying around, will generate different radar signatures. And sometimes you can miss that off in the distance. And the target trails help you look and say, oh my gosh, look, there's definitely target trails right around this area, and they're kind of fixed. And with the bird mode on and target trails, it allows you kind of to isolate that information and use it to go over to a spot where where you can see birds moving and you can see the radar signature, and boom, you'll find fish. That's the whole idea.
So whether you're on a sailboat and you're navigating, whether you're a cruising boat, a mega yacht, a sport fishing boat, radar is something that can be used in any situation that's going to benefit you for what you do when you're out in the water.
It sees things on the water, above the water, that you can't see. Small things, crab pots even, are really important sometimes for radar. You don't want to run into crab pots. You want to avoid that information, or avoid that kind of situation. Radars will detect that, So a lot of people say, well, I only need AIS. AIS is out there, but a lot of boats don't have AIS. Targets, rocks, deadheads and floating in the water don't have AIS. So, you need a radar.
AIS is automatic identification system.
Right, exactly. So some boats have these transponders saying, here I am, transmitting back to you. But a lot of boats don't have that. A lot of, no objects have that. So, any kind of navigation hazard that doesn't have that kind of technology is something you want to see, and only radar can provide that. If it's not charted, if it's a floating object, a semi-submerged container out on the open ocean, you want to have your radar on to be able to detect that well in advance of coming up to it and seeing it visually. Yeah. So that's the idea behind radar. It's a fantastic tool, arguably one of the most important tools, because it's all dependent on your own vessel. It's not a GPS system. You're not relying on satellites in the sky. It's all contained within your own vessel. You're sending out the energy, it's coming back to you, and you can get a reference on your display to show you what's happening around you. Super important.
All right, so now that we've talked about the different types of radars, the Doppler technology, some of the uses of it, how do you choose what radar is best for your boat?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeff. Sometimes it's just a physical size limitation of your vessel. If you have a sailboat, you probably don't want to have an open array necessarily, depending on where you can put it or the size of your boat. You don't want the open array getting tangled up in halyards or lines or anything like that coming down from the mast. But on certain other boats, if you can afford it, which is within your budget, the bigger the radar, typically the better performance. That's why you see larger radars on fishing boats and tugboats. They can resolve targets more cleanly and give you a higher resolution picture, put more energy on small targets, a semi-submerged deadhead log in the water that's vertically sitting. You're more likely to see that with a higher power radar with a longer array, because you're going to put more energy on that target and get a reflection back. So that's the idea behind you kind of get what you pay for when you go with a bigger radar, whether it be targets off in the distance or target resolutions. Because some people, I've heard some people go, well, I don't need a big radar, but that's not always true. The bigger the radar, the better performance you're going to get, the better information you're going to get out of it, whether it's close range or even further, longer ranges.
Now, I've seen some of the larger yachts that have 2 radars on there. Why would you?
Yeah, just redundancy. Just having a redundant system, because if you're crossing oceans, something could happen. I've seen where a bird flies into a radar and damages it, or something happens, or something could happen and you're not aware of it. Lightning strikes could take out one of the systems. This is just purely redundant. Granted, modern radar systems are arguably much more reliable. And also, it's important to understand that, hey, use your radar, turn it on and let it run. Especially if you have an NXT radar, it doesn't draw much power. It's not going to kill the batteries on your boat, especially if you have an engine running or a generator. It's not going to do all that, and it's safe. There's really this energy coming out of, whether it be this open array radar or this other radar. It's very directed. It's not, as long as it's above your head, you're not standing in front of it for hours and hours and hours at a time. There's arguably really no safety issues. If there was safety issues with radars or even with cell phones holding them close to your head, which is the same kind of electromagnetic radiation coming out of that, we would know about it. There would be, people would be saying, oh my gosh, we'd see statistical issues where, people are getting, having some kind of
Really
cancer
sick.
or something. But to me, there's been no conclusive evidence of that, and radar's been around for, modern radars have been around for 75 years roughly, and I've yet to see any conclusive evidence that there's been a problem. People are getting sick from radar.
So
it just doesn't
run your radar.
Yeah, run your radar.
The best time to learn your radar
is in good weather. Use it when you don't need it, so that when you do need it, you can see what's going on. You understand the picture that is presenting to you.
Right. So when you are in a situation where you're in adverse weather or a congested passageway, you know what you're looking at.
Right.
You're not guessing at things. You know how to use your radar.
I've seen so many people say, well, I don't need the radar now. I only need it when it's bad weather. But then they turn it on and they're like, well, what am I looking at? I'm not really sure. I'm like, then it's not really useful to you. You have to use the radar and understand it, especially in good conditions when you don't really need it. So you can, so you get an understanding. You see what's going on. I mean, arguably, the target analyzer, NXT technology helps you with that, but still use your radar when you
experience.
Use it all the time. Turn it on all the time. It's not going to wear out. There's not going to be any issues. You're just going to be able to get better situational awareness when you really do need it. When it's snotty out, when it's dark, when it's foggy, you don't know what's going on around you. You turn your radar on, you can get a better understanding and visual presentation that helps you navigate.
Right.
Sure.
Well, there's been a lot of great information that you shared here today. Let's just end with maintenance tips. Is there anything that our viewers need to know about kind of maintaining your radar or anything? Can you hose them off or what?
These new radars, and it's been like this for a long time. There's really no maintenance issues. You could argue maybe with the commercial guys with the magnetron radar. Yeah, they'll wear them out because they run them all the time, day after day after day, and they'll put thousands and thousands of hours on them a year. With most people, the way radars are used, the way most people use their boats, you can turn your radar on and leave it on. It's never going to wear out. It will never wear out. It will never be a problem. Everything is in here designed to last basically a lifetime. So, the mean time between failures in the tens, thousands of hours now, especially with solid state technology. there's just nothing to wear out anymore. And these little belts are designed to go forever, basically, as far as radar goes. And they're slow speed. They're not going to put nothing is really stressed heavily in this system. Even on the open arrays, it's the same thing.
I know on the open arrays, when you install it, you need to make sure that you put the silicone between the array and the plate, and also on the bolts that are on there, just to help the water not intrude in anything.
Exactly. But with these new dome radars, they just come complete. You just bolt them on from the outside and turn them on. You're good to go. You wipe them down, hose them down, make sure not too much salt accumulates or bird crap or something like that. You don't want to have that because you'll see birds sitting on these things a lot, but you don't want to have too much of that going on. And sometimes you can even paint the domes if you want to paint the domes for aesthetic purposes to match your boat. And as long as you use the proper paint, it's not a problem as well.
Do not use metallic paint.
Yeah, that's what we say. Yeah, don't use metallic paint. But there's certain paints, and call us up if you have any questions. But modern radar is really kind of set it and forget it these days, and especially with this new technology, there's just nothing to wear out. Turn it on, leave it on, and understand it so that when you really need it, you won't be trying to figure out the image.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks, Eric. This is really informative. I learned a lot here today with this. So if you have any questions about radar while we're doing the live premiere, feel free to enter some questions into the chat. And in future podcast episodes, we'll maybe cover some of those questions, or we have people that are answering questions right now. So feel free to answer or ask any questions that you have right now. In future episodes, Eric and I are going to be here. We're going to be talking about different topics. We'll talk about fish finders, navigation, sonar. We'll cover just about anything. So if you have topics that you would like us to cover, feel free to put those in the comments, and we'll take a look at that and see what we can do. We'll also have some guests. We'll do some on the water type of stuff when we have a chance, and really be able to cover a bunch of different topics in this podcast. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do and who we're going to be able to talk to, and all the information we're going to be able to cover. So one of the things you guys can do to help us is to subscribe and go ahead and like this video, but tell your friends about the Furuno Making Waves podcast. We're going to be covering lots of stuff, and I think that's going to be interesting to a lot of people. So thanks for joining us, and go make some waves. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you soon.